While she's getting set, Mr. Hendry, if you could tell us what this bill is.
Senate Bill 550 adds electric wheelchairs and complex rehabilitation technology to the type of consumer equipment for which an original equipment manufacturer must make available to an owner or independent repair provider a tool, part, or other device or implement that the original equipment manufacturer makes available to an authorized service provider for the purpose of diagnosing, maintaining, repairing, or updating consumer equipment.
Great. Thank you so much. Senator, welcome.
Thank you. Good afternoon, Chair Sosa, Vice Chair Chaichi, Vice Chair Osborne, and members of the committee. For the record, I'm Janine Solomon. I'm the state senator for Senate District 15, and that includes areas of Forest Grove, Cornelius, Hillsborough, and the Rock Creek area of Washington County. I come before you today in support of Senate Bill 550. The problem is that Oregonians are waiting too long for costly repairs for their wheelchairs and complex rehabilitation equipment. Individuals who use mobility equipment are facing a time-consuming obstacle. The struggle to get their mobility equipment repaired can impede the health, safety, and independence of Oregonians. So I am back before you with a solution. Senate Bill 550 amends Oregon's Bipartisan and Bicameral Right to Repair Act to include wheelchairs and complex rehabilitation equipment in Oregon. This allows Oregonians and independent shops the information and parts needed to repair this vital equipment. I wish I didn't have to bring this bill forward, but it is a travesty that this industry is focused on profit versus customer service. And I heard from advocates, and that is the reason I bring this bill forward, and I think you'll hear from them shortly as well. This bill is also connected to Senate Bill 549, which requires the Oregon Health Authority and coordinated care organizations to complete prior authorization for repair within 72 hours. These bills in unison will address the problem Oregonians are facing, waiting weeks and months for these pre-approvals. I have heard from constituents in my own district who share that their family members and neighbors struggle to get timely repairs. They shared with me how little information there is on how to even make simple repairs and how simple parts were high-priced and not very accessible, sometimes leaving them unable to leave their house or even their bed. Mobility equipment is fundamental to their daily lives, as these devices include seating and positioning systems and adaptive equipment such as bathing and standing devices. This bill is about protecting and ensuring the welfare of those with mobility struggles, that they can find repair access that fits within their own budget. Senate Bill 550 is about health, safety, and independence of Oregonians, and I can't say that enough. I would like to thank the advocates, especially those with lived experience, who have provided incredible testimony in the Senate committee, and some of whom are back here today to testify. Senate Bill 550 is common sense. And might I add, it is not the first in the nation. There are other states that have this policy, including, we modeled this after Colorado. I don't want anyone waiting weeks or months for equipment to be fixed, or spending way more than necessary on repair that could be done at home or at a local shop. I vowed to continue to fight for these issues. I fundamentally believe that if you own it, you should have the power of when and where the property that you own is fixed. More times than not, it will save you considerable money and time. But it is about freedom of choice. And this bill doesn't require anyone to fix their equipment themselves. It merely creates more choices. This bipartisan bill passed off the Senate floor with a 27-1 vote. There is still time for you to sign on for sponsorship as well. Colleagues, I urge your support and thank you for your attention to this matter.
Thank you, Senator. And Representative Neron.
Thank you, Chair Sosa, Vice Chair Osborne, and Vice Chair Chaichi, and members of our committee. For the record, I am State Representative Courtney Neron of House District 26 here today with Senator Solomon in strong support of Senate Bill 550. This bill takes a much-needed step, as we've heard, forward in expanding Oregon's right to repair laws to cover electric wheelchairs and complex rehabilitation technology. For Oregonians who rely on this equipment, mobility isn't a luxury, it is a necessity for independence, dignity, and everyday living. When a wheelchair breaks down, even for a few days, it can prevent someone from getting to work, attending a medical appointment, or even just leaving their home. And yet, access to timely and affordable repairs remains a persistent barrier. Right now, many users are forced to wait weeks, even months, for repairs through authorized channels, often due to insurance approval delays or a lack of local service providers. And SB 550 offers a simple, common-sense solution. It ensures that the same repair tools, documentation, and parts made available to those authorized service providers are also available on fair and reasonable terms, of course, to independent repair technicians and the equipment owners themselves. This change will not only expand access to timely repairs, but also reduce challenges for caregivers and increase autonomy for individuals with disabilities. It empowers users to seek out trusted local repair providers, promotes affordability through competition, and reduces unnecessary delays that have serious consequences for people's health and well-being. Importantly, Senate Bill 550 maintains those existing protections for privacy, safety, and intellectual property. And as we heard from Senator Salmon, it mirrors the structure of Oregon's broader right to repairs law passed in 2024. And extends consumer rights to those for whom repair access is not just about convenience, but about essential quality of life. I urge our support for Senate Bill 550, and thank you.
Thank you very much. Vice Chair Osborne.
Thank you, Chair. And thank you, Senator Salmon and Representative Neron. I love the bill, but then again, here we are again. You and I have sat in this and had this discussion over other bills in the past. I see a problem with the bill, and I'd like your response as to how you think you feel about whether or not it's a problem and how you would go about fixing it. There are parts of wheelchairs nowadays that require a prescription, right? Essentially, they can be, maybe they're being driven with their tongue or whatever the case may be, or maybe their head needs to be adjusted to just a certain degree, and that's the doctor decides that, right? When you're talking about right to repair and there are certain things I think that should be limited to certified only prescription following people to do that. Otherwise, it could put that person's life in danger potentially. Maybe the angle's wrong and they can't swallow right or something along those lines, maybe just off by a couple of degrees. So I have two concerns. Number one, that's the biggest concern. Number two, who handles that liability?
Chair Sosa, Vice Chair Osborne, thank you so much. I appreciate that. I know that there was a specific manufacturer that I think you'll hear from here shortly that came in towards the end of the process for the Senate bill, and talked through this with the advocates, which I think you're going to hear some response to that coming up. But I do want to just mention something that the suggested amendment language is considerably broad. And I will say that because I've come from working in the right to repair world with cell phones and such, and heard from many companies that I heard from one particular company when I was working with the cell phone to say, oh my goodness, you can't trust that somebody can go and find an independent dealer to sell, to repair that, or goodness gracious, fix it themselves because they're going to burn their cornea or something. There was a lot of extreme conversation. We talked to experts about it who debunked the possibility. And I think this is kind of what is coming into this. And just to share with you, the broad language seems that it's require repair, replacement, or adjustment in consultation with a medical provider, physical therapist, occupational therapist, or assistive technology professional. And I just want you to know that what will happen is that manufacturers will potentially interpret that in a they'll interpret that as narrowly as they can, and potentially utilize a lot of their equipment within that amendment. And so it will potentially add a block to a lot of folks who are going to have to be able to attempting to get their equipment fixed, and maybe not even fix it themselves. They're going to go to an independent dealer, but they're going to potentially interpret that law as something that is going to put a barrier to that. But I do know that we have some folks that are going to come up and talk about that as well. As well as, can I just, we did have the conversation with Colorado and talked with not only the legislator who brought this forward, Representative Brianna Titone, but also spoke with the disability community in an organization within Colorado. There is no issue. There is no issue with this bill. And they actually said that it was attempted, and they declined. And it's my understanding that I believe in Washington, it was also attempted to put this language, and they declined as well. And so I think if you could just potentially listen to some of the advocates, as well as Charlie Fisher, I believe, is online from Osberg, who's been working on a lot of these policies from across the United States and very familiar with some of the language that pops up when these bills come forward, and he can address that.
Thank you. Okay. Yes, Rep. Joseph.
Thank you, Chair. Following up on that same topic, I think I've heard from some folks who are proposing the amendment about the safety concerns. I haven't heard of concrete examples yet of those safety concerns kind of becoming reality, but the response that I've heard is that maybe there haven't been that many people taking advantage of the ability to repair wheelchairs. I'm not sure if you all are the right ones to ask, but I'll ask it now so that whoever is the best person can answer it or can follow up in writing after. But I would love any data from the states that have implemented this, Colorado being a good example, how often it's been used and how that's going.
Great. We will get that information.
Perfect. Thank you.
Thank you very much. We appreciate your
Yeah,
testimony.
and I'll be on side two if
Great.
there's anything further. that
Okay.
comes up.
All right. Next up is going to be Representative Nos. Representative, welcome to the committee. If you could just introduce yourself for the record.
First time I've been here. Thank you, Chair Sosa. For the record, members of your committee, my name is Rob Nos. I'm the state representative for House District 42, which is inner southeast Portland and a little sliver of northeast. And I'm kind of here today really more in my capacity as the chair of the House Healthcare and Behavioral Health Committee. And I introduced the Dash 2 amendment, which is posted to OLS, and I think attempts to narrow this a little bit. I want to state very strongly that I support the right to repair. I support the right to repair a wheelchair. I think the preponderance of things that go wrong with a person's wheelchair can be fixed by somebody, and it doesn't necessarily have to be a medical professional, or if it needs to be, it can be a medical professional of the person's choosing. I also support very strongly House Bill 549, which was mentioned. I think it's part of this because prior authorization is a thing that delays care, and I think in the instance of a wheelchair, that's something that we should contain. We should ask the insurance industry to speed up its process or not require it in most instances, okay? And there are other bills in this legislature about prior authorization in general. I'm before you because I'm concerned that the advocates are making it seem like a wheelchair and a cell phone are similar things. And I'm not sure that they are in a few instances. And so what I'm asking you to do is investigate a little bit the Dash 2 amendment and the concerns that some people have. Some wheelchairs do have devices that control your swallowing, your ability to drive the wheelchair with your eyes, or if you're paralyzed with other parts. And I just think that maybe in those instances, we're slipping over into something that's not just a mobility device, but also a proper medical device that, if not done properly, is going to impact your breathing or your ability to swallow. And so if my amendment is too broad and it sweeps in too many things, or it's not specific enough, I'm very open to you fixing that or addressing that. And frankly, if you come to the conclusion that my amendment is not needed, that what they're doing in Colorado is working, and let the consumer beware, I suppose that's okay. But I'm asking you to deliberate about that a little bit, because I think this is a little bit different than a cell phone device, where I frankly, like, arguments that were made that, like, this is gonna, like, blow up in your face and hurt your cornea and all that sort of thing. If we don't give you the right to take it to a dealer, I thought were kind of bull. okay? This is a little bit different, I would argue. There's a little bit of difference, I think, between a wheelchair device that has medical implications, not just mobility ones, okay? Fix your battery, fix your wheel, fix your joystick, fix all the things on it. Let that human do that, okay? But maybe when it comes to the ability to swallow, or if you're driving the thing based on your cornea, maybe we ought to make a little bit of an exception and let the manufacturer have some say in that. And if you determine, no, it's okay, I will be a yes on the bill. I'll probably be a yes on the bill even if you don't amend it.
Yes,
Okay.
Vice Chair.
Representative Dones, thank you, and thank you, Chair. The -2 is your amendment?
Correct.
I like it.
Well, I mean, again, listen to there's people that don't, right? So let's see if we can listen to them and listen to folks that think the amendment is necessary and see what you can figure out.
Yes, Vice Chair.
Thank you, Chair. I'm trying to walk through mentally what I think happens. You are the consumer and the patient. You want to fix your wheelchair. You choose to have somebody, like a dealer, fix that wheelchair. If it's not fixed correctly, you are the consumer and the patient, so you would know that there is a problem. Would you not then go to a different dealer? Or what is, if they get something wrong, is it going to be dire that somebody dies before they find out that there's a problem?
I mean,
What happens?
I think that's the implication, right? In certain instances, all right, wheelchair technology in terms of a medical device has gotten pretty sophisticated, okay? And I think in the instances where you're totally paralyzed and a physician has to determine what's the right angle for you to be able to breathe and drive the thing with your eyes, maybe in that case, you gotta say, yeah, this probably needs to be more than just replacing your battery, changing the wheels, getting a brand new seat, let all that be done. And if you make a mistake or you choose a bad person, that's on you, okay? But also you got to have it faster. It's tough, right? Because I want to support consumers having the ability to be able to fix their own things, okay? And there's too much difficulty in getting your wheelchair fixed. I'm supporting the bill. I'm a yes. I'm just saying I have a little bit of doubt about this part and see if the -2 is a good idea.
Yes, Rep. Kate.
Thank you, Chair. And I'm sorry, Representative Nose, you might not be the correct person to ask this question, and it might have been mentioned earlier, but is there any requirement that things have to be repaired even within the original manufacturer's spec? Because
Representative Kate, I would not, and Chair Sosa, I don't know the answer to that, but it's kind of a little bit like with the cell phone thing that we dealt with a year ago. If you're not willing to investigate the person that's repairing your thing as to their competency to do it and whether they're going to follow the manufacturer's specs, I think that's a little bit on you, frankly. Like, buyer beware. Like, if you're going to have your device repaired by somebody that's not the authorized dealer, you should probably investigate that. And I'm okay with that. Like, figure it out.
if I can follow up. I guess where I was going to in that is a lot of times there is a manufacturer spec for safety as far as how fast wheelchairs can go as well. And if people decided they wanted to dial that up, that could create a lot of, I feel like, safety concerns as well.
Sure.
So that, okay, now I guess I need to look into this more. Thank you.
Representative Sosa and Representative Kate, I would say, again, in that instance, that's probably up to the operator of the wheelchair. Like, that doesn't feel to me how fast you go dips into the medical necessity of the device being calibrated in such a way that it doesn't impair your breathing or your ability to operate the vehicle, the wheelchair. But I think reasonable people could disagree.
I think it could.
Sure.
All right.
Okay.
Thank you, Rep. Nose.
Okay.
Appreciate your testimony. Okay, our next panel up is going to be Ren Grabham, Matthew Saris, and Ben Gurewitz. If you could please come forward. And I believe that Ren is going to be remote. So Ren, if you're with us, you can go ahead.
Good afternoon, Chair Sosa, co-chairs and members of the committee. For the record, my name is Ren Grabham. I am 19 years old from Portland, Oregon. I currently live in Corvallis, where I'm a student at Oregon State University with majoring in mechanical engineering. I have a form of muscular dystrophy called spinal muscular atrophy. Because of this condition, I have used a power wheelchair since I was 3. I am here today in support of Senate Bill 550. I'm a very active person. I am a competitive soccer player. I love skiing. I walk to class every day with my friends. I'm out around campus a lot. I'm out around town, which means that I break my wheelchair a lot. And I've done everything from breaking off just a little piece of my armrest to I have actually fried the motherboard of my wheelchair. One example that I have is when I was 16, I went on vacation with my family, and my wheelchair on the way on a road trip suddenly stopped driving and was giving us error codes that we had never seen before, and we could not access manuals to figure out what they meant. We discovered that if we turned my chair off, disabled my brakes, and reset the fuse to my chair, it would start driving again. However, this led to the chair continuing to do this every 30 seconds for the entire week, which meant that for a whole week, I could not be further than I could yell for my parents while I was with my younger cousins, which means I couldn't go and run around. We couldn't go to the park. I was 16. I could have taken the kids out by myself. I was not able to do that because my wheelchair was not working. When we returned home, we were able to get my chair into the shop where they diagnosed it with a faulty motor sensor. It then took another 6 months for it to actually get fixed, which for me meant that I had to use an old power wheelchair that I had from elementary school that was no longer working very well and did not fit me or work for my needs anymore. This would have actually been a very simple repair if we could have accessed the parts we needed and the manuals. My family and I have been fixing things on wheelchairs and like old wheelchairs. We've been fixing that stuff for years. Instead of having to waiting months for insurance approval and then waiting for months to get an appointment at the shop, because there's only one shop in the Portland area that we are able to use to get parts. So I don't have another choice, which means I often have to go at least a couple of days for simple repairs because my chair has to be in the shop. I've gone a week without my chair because I needed new batteries and wheels, which are 2 of the simplest repairs to make. When I don't have my main chair, I either have to use a manual chair, which I am not able to propel myself in, or I have to use the old wheelchair that is too small and is no longer working. I'm lucky because I have the option to have the backup chair, but it now requires repairs because it's almost 10 years old and we can't get it fixed because it's no longer covered by insurance and we are not able to currently get the parts that we need for it. And at this point, that means that if my current chair were to break, I would not have a chair to use and I would potentially be stuck in my dorm all day, unable to go to class or get food or leave my room independently. The right to repair power wheelchairs would help a lot of people because they don't have to wait months to get their chairs repaired for simple fixes. They're perfectly capable of fixing themselves. Thank you for listening.
All right, thank you so much. We appreciate your testimony. And next is going to be Matthew.
Good afternoon, Chair Sosa, Vice Chairs, and members of the committee. My name is Matthew Sears, and I'm testifying on behalf of the Oregon Developmental Disabilities Coalition in support of SB 550 without the -2 amendment. Everyone deserves to live independently and have full access to participate fully in society. Barriers to repairing assistive technology like electronic wheelchairs and complex rehabilitation technology prevents inclusion in the community. SB 550, as introduced, reduces those barriers. I also wanted to share the story of Kelsey Hargroves, which is available as video testimony in OLIS, because it underscores the importance of SB 550. Kelsey is from Klamath Falls. Her electronic wheelchair allows her greater independence, social connections with friends, and the ability to work. but delays in getting her wheelchair repaired left her without her chair for months. It should have been a simple process of getting a new battery. But during that time, she lost her independence. She could not visit with her friends and also could not work the job that she loves. Senate Bill 550 improves access to common repairs, such as the one that Kelsey needed for her chair. The DD Coalition also supports Senate Bill 550 because access to repairs improves health and safety for users of assistive technology. Unrepaired or broken equipment may lead to injuries for both persons with IDD and their supporters, such as through fall risks. Delays in repairs can confine people with IDD to beds or temporary wheelchairs that are not custom fitted. That gives rise to increased risk of pressure sores or other health complications. The bill should be supported without the -2 amendment. People with disabilities who are users of these assistive technologies know when consulting with medical providers is necessary for repairs. They are not going to risk their own bodies. The -2 amendment allows manufacturers to withhold parts and information if they deem medical consultation is required. And manufacturers may narrowly interpret that to maintain their monopolization over repairs. It also narrows it to only 10 components of electronic wheelchairs. So in conclusion, we ask that you support Senate Bill 550 to give people with disabilities the choice as to how and where and when to repair these technologies that are necessities for their daily activities. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Ben, please.
Chair Sosa, Vice Chair Osborne, Vice Chair Chaichi. For the record, my name's Ben Gerwitz, and I'm here on behalf of Disability Rights Oregon. We're in proud support of SB 550, but we do not support the -2 amendment. We believe that the -2 amendment creates an arbitrary standard for allowing manufacturers to decide when and what parts, tools, and information the user can access. We believe it is actually a deliberate effort to undermine the timely repair and mobility of mobility and complex rehabilitation devices, which is the entire issue this bill aims to resolve. Oregon residents living with physical and medical disabilities, seniors, and children with developmental disabilities rely on manual and powered wheelchairs and other mobility devices. Even minor repairs to these devices can take weeks or months to complete. Wheelchair users and independent repair shops are prohibited from accessing the necessary parts, embedded software, tools, and documentation needed to perform diagnostic maintenance or repair services. Some chairs require a software passcode or a physical key for any repairs to be done. Consumers often spend weeks in virtual queue to get their wheelchairs fixed. As such, wheelchair users can only go to authorized shops for repairs. The delays may cause a consumer to spend time in bed for weeks while waiting and rendering them unable to attend their daily activities like going to work, the store, and social engagements. So we strongly support the passage of Senate Bill 550 without the -2 amendments, and will leave the rest of my testimony online for all of us. Thank you, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
Vice Chair Osborne.
Thank you, Chair. And yes, I do have a question for you. So I did a little research on this. On March 5th, when this was over in the Senate side, there was some testimony on Senate Bill 174. A representative from DRO, which is the company or the nonprofit, whatever it is that you represent, stated, "My wheelchair is my legs. I depend on it for my independence and freedom and to be able to properly continue my job, enjoy friends, and have the same opportunities that others have. I need to fit it properly so I don't do undue harm to my body." This statement underscores the importance of ensuring that certain clinical parts are fitted and repaired only by certain professionals. How can you not support the -2 with that statement made by one of your own members?
Chair Sosa and the Vice Chair, whatever. I I guess I'm a little bit confused as to the question. I would say that kind of the dash 2 would give the manufacturer the capacity to decide when that individual would be able to receive a repair. So they would still have to wait for prior approval from their doctor, and then that approval would then have to go to the company, and then the company would have to release those parts and tools. So essentially, that still creates a long kind of process timeline that this bill is trying to fix. So yes, while the bill does try and kind of eliminate some of that kind of standard, that queue that I mentioned, there's still a long timeline, and so we are concerned that that timeline will continue to force our clients to wait months, weeks, almost years. We have a client who's waited 2 years and has actually her spine has completely shifted, and her quality of life has completely changed because she hasn't been able to get a repair for her wheelchair.
Good. Okay. All right. Thank you very much. Appreciate your testimony. All three of you, thank you. We appreciate you testifying. Okay, our next panel up is going to be Wayne Grew, Tanya Hammett, and Riley Hurt. And whoever would like to go first.
I'll go first since I'm here. Chair Sosa, Vice Chairs Chaichi and Osborne, and members of the committee, thank you for the opportunity to testify today. Wow. My name is Tanya Hammett. I am representing National Seating and Mobility. We are a national provider of complex rehab technology, otherwise known as CRT, and I'm also proud to call Oregon home. CRT involves more than standard wheelchairs. These are medically prescribed, customized mobility systems built specifically to meet the needs of individuals with complex disabilities. For the people we serve, this equipment is not optional. It's essential to their mobility, independence, and long-term health. I'm here today to express concern with SB 550 in its current form. While we understand the intent of the bill and support the right to repair, we cannot endorse the legislation without changes. Our support is conditional on the inclusion of the Dash 2 amendment. This amendment proposes a focused exemption that applies only to select components of CRT devices. Those that require clinical expertise or involve programming, calibration, or sensitive adjustments. We're talking about specialty controls, power seating functions, and custom seating systems. These components are intimately tied to a user's posture, pressure management, and respiratory health. If mishandled, they can create serious medical complications. The exemption outlined in the Dash 2 amendment is modest, impacting only around 6% of CRT parts, and it exists purely to maintain consumer safety. The language is modeled after frameworks already in place in other states, including California. We believe this amendment strikes the right balance, expanding repair options while safeguarding the users who rely on the technology to live safely and independently. We urge the committee to adopt the Dash 2 amendment. Without it, we cannot support SB 550. With it, we are proud to stand behind the bill and support the broader effort to improve repair access for all. Thank you for your consideration.
Thank you very much. Whoever would like to go.
Chair Sosa, Vice Chairs Chachi and Osborne, and members of the committee. Thank you for the chance to speak with you today. My name is Wayne Grau, and I serve as the Executive Director for the National Coalition for Assistive and Rehab Technology, or NCART for short. We advocate for individuals who depend on complex rehab technology, and we represent both the manufacturers and providers of the essential medical equipment. CRT wheelchairs are not standard mobility aids. They're medically necessary devices prescribed and customized by a clinical team to support individuals with severe disabilities and progressive conditions such as ALS. These devices are regulated as Class II medical equipment by the FDA due to their complexity and critical role in maintaining health, function, and quality of life. While we fully support the spirit of SB 550 and the push to expand consumer repair rights, we must oppose the bill as it currently stands. Our position would shift to strong support if the committee would adopt the Dash 2 amendment, which introduced vital targeted protections for CRT users. This amendment carves out a very narrow exemption. It's just 6.3% of total CRT wheelchair part. It only applies to highly specialized components that affect clinical function, such as programmable electronics, seating systems, and positioning features. These parts must be adjusted or repaired with clinical involvement to avoid putting the user's health at risk. This is not about protecting commercial interests. This is about ensuring safety for a particularly fragile population. The exemption mirrors language adopted in other states that was shaped through collaboration with both disability advocates and consumer organizations. And we believe the Dash 2 amendment makes SB 550 stronger. It keeps the integrity of the right to repair movement while accounting for the clinical complexity and health risks associated with CRT. We respectfully urge the committee to support the Dash 2 amendment. Without it, we must remain in opposition. With it, we stand in full support of SB 550 and the movement to accessible, equitable repair rights. Thank you for your time today and your commitment to this important issue.
Thank you. Please.
Chairperson Sosa and members of the committee, thank you for the opportunity to testify today. My name is Riley Hurt, and I am a disability advocate and a wheelchair user from Kaiser. I'm here to express my support for Senate Bill 550 with the amendments that acknowledge the unique considerations involved in complex rehab technology. While I appreciate the intention behind the bill and the steps it takes toward recognizing the needs of wheelchair users, I must emphasize that it does not address the root cause of the issue: the failure of complex rehab technology providers to make timely repairs to the mobility equipment we depend on every day. We are here discussing the right to repair because wheelchair users are experiencing unacceptable delays in getting vital repairs through our equipment providers. These delays often leave us stranded, unable to go to work, attend school like I do, or participate in our communities. The reason we are looking for alternative solutions like right to repair is because providers are not meeting their obligations. But while Senate Bill 550 opens a door for manufacturers and end users to access parts directly, it does not provide the full solution. Manufacturers cannot repair our wheelchairs. They can only send the parts. Most wheelchair users are not trained or physically able to perform those repairs ourselves, and hiring a third party often means those repairs won't be covered by insurance. This results in a new financial burden placed squarely on the shoulders of people with disabilities, many of whom are already living on fixed or low incomes. To put this in perspective, my joystick costs $2,028. My batteries together cost $710. If I had to pay for either of those out of pocket, I couldn't afford it. But if the repair is done through my provider, insurance would likely cover it. The problem is providers aren't making timely repairs, which is why we're forced to consider options like right to repair in the first place. In short, I do not oppose Senate Bill 550 with its amendments. It is an important step forward in acknowledging the nuances of complex rehab technology and ensuring that certain repairs, like those involving seating and positioning, are handled by trained professionals. But I urge the committee and the Senate to recognize that this bill alone does not solve the problem. Real progress requires accountability from the providers who are supposed to make these repairs in the first place. Until that accountability exists, the promise of true freedom, justice, and choice for wheelchair users remains out of reach. Thank you for your time and consideration.
Thank you. Vice Chair Osborne.
Thank you, Chair. This is a question for Wayne. First off, I'll just start out again. I don't hate this bill. I just want to make sure if we pass this bill, it's done correctly so it doesn't come back and bite us. But in a one-pager by another group, I see that California passed the bill 1384, and there's some other states that have passed the bill, but they all seem to contain language similar to the Dash 2. So could you tell me how many states that you know of have passed similar legislation to this with the Dash 2 type, cutouts for clinical stuff?
Yes, sir. Chair Sosa, Vice Chair Osborne. California, we work closely with the disability advocates in California, so they've passed it. It is passed in Maryland. It just is awaiting signature from Governor Moore. It is also passed in the state of Tennessee. We also have it introduced in one other state at this point in time, Rhode Island.
Follow-up?
Yes.
And just to be clear, all of those states have adapted language similar to the -2?
Yes, sir.
Okay, thank you. Thanks.
I do have a question. So the proponents talked about Colorado, House Bill 1011. Looks like it was enacted in 2022, which the base bill here is modeled after. Have there been problems in Colorado that you can talk about with?
We're not aware of any problems. Representative Chosen asked about, how's it worked out. I called the manufacturers who I represent. I said, how many people have called and ordered parts directly? It's only been 7 so far. It doesn't mean that's a bad thing, but, again, I think one thing that's underestimated is a consumer can buy it, but they're not going to be reimbursed, okay? So they can buy the parts and they can pay for the labor, but because they're not contracted with the insurance company or with Medicaid, they will never receive reimbursement. And I think people underestimated that cost and that thing. They all thought that they were going to get it reimbursed. So, but again, we're not opposed to right to repair. Thank you, Senator Solomon, for introducing this. We just want to make sure that those 6.3% clinical parts are protected and the consumers are protected from those cards. Everything else, please feel free. Buy directly from the manufacturer, no problem.
Yes, Vice Chair.
Follow up to your question. The Colorado 1011, it definitely has -2 style amendment to it?
No, sir. That one is definitely just like Senator Solomons bill, the original bill.
Okay.
But I also want to just say one thing about Colorado. There was a trailer bill introduced by the same representative that eliminated prior authorization. That resulted in a 21-day reduction in repair time. And Senator Solomon has introduced another bill that will do the same thing, so, which we strongly support.
Yeah, Rep. Judson.
Thank you, Chair. I think here's what I'm struggling with. Sometimes this job makes us keenly aware of all the things we don't understand, right? And I think that wheelchairs are among those, and I trust that wheelchair users understand their devices so much better than I will, even if I do a lot of research. I guess, and maybe sounding like some of my colleagues on the other side of the aisle here, but I'm wondering kind of why not let the free market and let the consumer figure this out here? Why not open it up? And if I'm a wheelchair user and it feels like repairing this, I need to go through an expert or I need to get reimbursed by health insurance, I'm going to go that route. But I'm also hearing important testimony that there's these big delays, and I feel like maybe some more competition in the market is maybe one of the most effective tools we have to speed up that process, so that maybe we're going back to the manufacturer, but that manufacturer has a little more market pressure to move a little faster. What am I missing, or what are your thoughts on that?
It is a complicated issue. I wish it was simple. I wish I could point to one thing and say, if you fix that, everything will be fixed, but unfortunately it's not. And by the way, we're dealing with this across the U.S. It's not just here in the state of Oregon. What I would say is, a California legislator said this to me. Said, Wayne, so it's kind of like if I go into a pharmacy, I can go and buy allergy medication that I don't need a prescription for because the bad outcomes aren't going to be that bad. But if I need something stronger, I got to go and talk to a doctor. And that's what we're saying. For the 6.3% of those parts, just go talk to a medical expert just to make sure. I don't want to see anybody get hurt, and don't want to see them get a decubitus ulcer. I mean, it's just not what we want. It's really about just ensuring their physical health.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you very much. We appreciate it. Oh, I'm sorry. Vice Chair Chaichi. Go ahead.
Thank you. I think our first speaker on this panel mentioned something about programming, and to piggyback off of not understanding everything we hear about, I feel like programming is computer science engineering, and we're talking about consulting with a medical expert. So can you tell me how this is going to work and why it's necessary?
Yeah, so when power wheelchairs need to be programmed for an individual, it's really based on their needs and their capabilities. So if somebody has cerebral palsy and they have a lot of tremor, shake, when they're trying to drive their wheelchair, somebody with the expertise to program that joystick to ensure that they can drive it and not injure themselves or somebody else is extremely important. Or the eye gaze was mentioned a little while ago. That's very new technology. Not everybody should be programming eye gaze technology when you're using your eyes to drive the chair. That takes a certain level of expertise.
Okay, follow up.
Yes.
Does that mean that we have doctors who are also programming engineers? Who are these professionals that you'd be consulting with?
It would be the physical or occupational therapist, or sometimes the physiatrist, the physician. We are the equipment experts. They're the ones that are helping prescribe the equipment and document what is best for that individual.
Thank you. Thank you very much. We appreciate your testimony. All right, colleagues, we've got,
It looks like Senator Solomon might want to.
how long will it take? Yeah. Yeah, you're the folks up here, you're good. Thank you. Appreciate it. Okay, why don't we finish the testimony real quick and then, okay, so colleagues, we have, it looks like 4 more people to testify in this, and then we have 2 more bills as well. So I'm going to now limit the testimony for the last 4 folks to 2 minutes each. If you could limit your remarks to that, we'd appreciate it. We have Charlie Fisher, Danny Hillebrand, and Andrea Meyer. If you could please come forward.
Have everyone speaking to the microphone a little bit better.
Yes. Okay, got it. And do we have Charlie? I've got Charlie Fisher appearing remotely, I believe.
Yeah, I'm here remotely.
Okay,
yeah.
great. All right,
Can you hear me?
Charlie, if you could introduce yourself for the record, please.
Sure. Chair Sosa, members of the committee, my name is Charlie Fisher. I'm the state director of OSPIRG. We're a statewide public interest group, and we have been leading the coalition in support of right to repair. We're very much in support of this bill. And I think others made a very good case for why it's important. I won't go into that. Let me just speak briefly to the amendment, which we're opposed to for a couple of reasons. I think the first thing, though, just generally is, right to repair as a concept doesn't require anyone to do anything differently. If someone currently is so reckless about their health that they want to try a really complex repair themselves, they still can't. There are YouTube videos online, you can find information, like to a certain extent, it's not as good. You could probably pay someone to attempt it for you if you wanted to. What this does is it simply improves the information that everyone has. So they're actually getting the manuals that are authorized by the manufacturers. They get access to the highest quality parts, and they make sure the proper tools are available. So all this is doing is improving the quality of repairs. If someone is going to want to do it themselves, they probably are going to try, maybe, and it's probably gonna be worse because they don't have all the things that right to repair requires. 2 just specific things on the amendment. So as others have said, it restricts access to anything that the manufacturer unilaterally determines to require consultation with a medical professional. There's no established metric in this amendment for what that means. We already know that manufacturers are going to comply in the kind of the smallest way possible, as we've seen with other manufacturers. And then there's also the fact that, as people have said, sometimes it takes a long time to even get in with your medical professional. So if we're requiring that for anything that the manufacturer deems to need consultation, that means people are having to wait longer. Second, so even within the category of things that are not deemed to require consultation with a medical professional, this amendment limits what people have access to just 10 components. So, for example, many wheelchairs have programmable joysticks. That's not included in this. I was talking to someone yesterday who said that something as simple as a seat cushion, if not fixed quickly, can lead to bed sores that take months to heal. That's not included in this list of 10. And I think just fundamentally, the list idea is flawed because there are hundreds of parts to a sophisticated electric wheelchair, and to pick and choose every single one that we're allowing disabled people to use, and the ones that wheelchair users aren't allowed, it's not going to work. I think at the end of the day,
I'm going to need you to wrap up.
Okay, yeah. So at the end of the day, the people who use these chairs are the ones who know best what their health concerns are and needs. And I think we should leave it up to them to make their own health decisions and not let manufacturers who have a vested interest in a monopoly on repair make those decisions. Thank you.
Okay, thank you so much. All right, please.
Hi, Chair Sosa and committee members. My name's Danny Hillenbrand, and I'm an Oregonian here. I used to live in Salem, now I'm in Beaverton. Thank you for the opportunity to share with you today why I support the Bill 550. Disabled people who utilize mobility aids are often faced with repair and maintenance needs, just like many of us do for vehicles. The difference here, though, is that our mobility aids are necessary for activities of daily living, as well as participating in our communities, jobs, and taking care of our families. The current process requires both lengthy prior auths as well as being dependent on the DME provider's availability, as they have the key to the manufacturer's repair information. The combination of these factors leaves disabled people without their mobility aid or at risk of injury when trying to make do with broken equipment. I think that some of the opposition for the amendment comes from also allowing up to 72 hours for the prior auth. Why is a prior auth needed to repair a device that the insurance has already approved? When it comes to needing to replace a part, we're not asking for a completely new thing that we've never used before. It's replacing the part that was already previously approved and prescribed. The delay in care is unnecessary and harmful. In my profession as a nurse, risks for pressure injuries and infection have been drilled into my mind. A pressure injury can occur in less than 2 hours, sometimes even 30 minutes. Why are we saying a 72-hour delay is acceptable for a device that insurance previously approved? When it comes to wheelchairs, often, especially power chairs, the ability for people to off-weight and shift their weight is necessary. If they can't use their chair and they're stuck in bed, they are not able to do that, and that puts them at major risk for these types of injuries. In regards to the manufacturer info, I have the privilege to volunteer for a wheelchair maintenance workshop here in Oregon the past few years, and it's increasingly apparent that the access to manufacturer repair info negatively impacts those both with and without insurance. Many cannot afford DME, even if they have insurance, and trying to make do with secondhand equipment requires them to make repairs, adjustments on their own. And when it comes to your livelihood, ability to work, care for your family, and just survive within your own home, you're going to try and make do with what you have. And if that means trying to make do with used equipment, potentially putting yourself in harm's way just trying to function, that's kind of what we're talking about here. And I know that there's been a lot of hesitations about liability and things like that. I have a good amount of experience in adjusting and repairing used equipment and helping people who don't have access to those things. If anyone has questions about that, I can try to answer some of those questions. I'm not sure if the hesitancy and questions that you've had have been answered yet. But if not, I'm happy to try and answer some of those.
Thank you very much. We appreciate it. And Ms. Meyer, please.
Good afternoon, Chair Souza, Vice Chairs, and members of the committee. Andrea Meyer, Director of Government Relations for AARP Oregon. I will be quick so Senator Solomon has some time to come back up, but we are pleased to support Senate Bill 550 in its current form. Wheelchairs are an essential mobility device for many older adults, providing them with independence and freedom to live their lives fully. However, as you've heard, the current restrictions on repairing these devices pose significant challenges. When wheelchair users are unable to access affordable and timely repairs, it can lead to prolonged periods of immobility, isolation, and diminished quality of life. While this can have a devastating effect on anyone and everyone, it is a particular issue for older Oregonians who are at a high risk of isolation. Senate Bill 550 gives individuals who use mobility devices the dignity and autonomy to control their lives and the choices they make. For those reasons, we urge you to support this bill. Thank you.
Great, thank you so much. And Vice Chair, when you
I
had
had
a quick question?
Yeah, thank you, Chair. I had a question for Charlie Fisher, if he's still there.
Charlie, you're still with us? No, it looks like he's logged off, but if you want to, Andrew can.
I'll ask the question if it's all right.
Sure.
I've got this little one pager here that they sent, and Osberg's name's all over it. How they support California Senate Bill 1384, which uses the -2 amendment, but yet he said they don't support the -2 amendment.
All right, well.
So I'd like an answer to that.
Okay, thank you. Okay, we've got one more speaker. Thank you both very much. We appreciate your testimony. We have one more speaker up, and then we're going to give Senator Solomon a chance to do quick wrap up. Tom Holt, if you could please come forward.
Chair Sosa, members of the committee, for the record, Tom Holt. I'm here today in my capacity as a longtime volunteer board member of ALS Northwest. We fill in the gaps of things that insurers don't cover on the ground, providing supports for people living with ALS and their families throughout the state of Oregon and Southwest Washington. Any given time, we're taking care of between 400 and 500 individuals around the state. One of the things that our staff do is help people get access to complex wheelchairs. We work with the local providers of those chairs. We frankly have not had the kind of experiences we've heard about in terms of service that our staff is aware of. We have serious concerns about the bill as drafted, but strongly support the -2s. These chairs are very, very sophisticated pieces of equipment. For the population we serve, virtually everyone is going to need the most sophisticated kinds of chairs that exist. They include the eye-gazing, eye control devices, integrated respiratory support, automatic changing of positioning, and all those things. There are lots of things that a caregiver with a modicum of skill can do on their own. You know, changing parts that you simply unscrew something and bolt a new part on, that sort of thing. But there are technical pieces that someone could get over their skis unintentionally. You know, a well-meaning person who's very handy might want to take a crack at fixing something that they shouldn't really do. And that's where the -2 comes in. We generally support the idea of right to repair. We're all about, as an organization, people remaining as independent as they can be for as long as possible. Unfortunately, it's the worst club in the world, and we know how it ends. But we really urge you to adopt the -2 amendment, and that will protect consumers from making unintentional errors with these very, very complex things. They cost as much as a decent new car. If they do something that damages the chair, that makes it unusable, then that's a whole nother set of issues to get approval for a new chair. So I think you can do a really good thing here and pass a good bill with the -2.
Thank you, Mr. Holt, appreciate it. Senator, very quickly, if you want to come back up. We've got like 1 minute because I've got multiple people here.
Maybe he is best, because he did answer one of mine.
Okay, fair enough.
But Charlie's on there.
Mr. Fisher, if you're with us.
Yes, sorry, I got disconnected.
That's no problem. The question posed by Vice Chair, we'll give you like 1 minute to answer, is that Osberg, the one pager that Osberg's name is on, says it supports the California language. And Vice Chair Osborne said, well, gosh, isn't the -2 based on California language? So how can you be supportive of the California bill and opposed to the -2? So
Sure. Yeah, Chair Sosa, Rep. Osborne. I mean, the California bill was better than nothing. But we learn things from other states. Since then, Colorado and Washington have both passed bills that are not based on the California language. And, to be honest, our PERG chapter in California is not nearly as involved with the California bill as the other ones. I'll just say in Washington, it just passed almost, I think, unanimously through both chambers based on the Colorado version. And the disability advocates there, I know, were really frustrated with the attempt that they did to negotiate with the manufacturers that just to them felt like they were being run around in circles. This is a better version of the bill. It creates more access to repairs, and so we want to do the best thing, not the worst thing.
Okay, great. Thank you very much, Mr. Fisher. I sure appreciate it. And thank you, colleagues, for a very robust discussion. Definitely a bill that we will give a lot of thought and consideration to. I'm going to close the public hearing on Senate Bill 550. We're going to try to get through our last two bills in the last 12 minutes. Open a public hearing on Senate Bill 797A. I'm going to invite